anything.
Someone of stature whom I won't name because it was a private conversation over just coffee, but there's someone who's known, who's famous in your country. And they said, what do you think of Ethiopians? Like, you're loved and respected. And I went, well, I said, why should Ethiopians care what I think? Why should you care what any Ferengi white person thinks?
I mean, if there, I think there's a lot of people who care about what other people think, and you always learn from other people, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what their stature is, what their background is, what their education level is, what their socioeconomic level is. I think there's always something to learn from another human being.
True, but the thing is, that's a very generous humanistic attitude. But from the perspective of, there are too many people who look like me who are trying to tell you what to think and what you should do instead of shutting your mouth and listening. I wrote in a book, which will be coming out soon, I said, the West will begin to understand Africa when it realizes it's not talking to a child, it's talking to its mother. And not enough people shut up and listen to Ethiopians instead of like saying, this is what you should do. And all I can say is that when Ethiopia and its people realize the enormous potential that you have, when GERD finally gets really rolling, my gosh, stand back, because you guys are going to astonish the world. You already have many times over, but you're going to blow their minds because you have food and you have resources that are untapped and you have the potential of your people. And when that finally gets really rolling, it's going to be amazing. And I am living for that day. I want to see that day. But most of the time in my weeks here, what I have is conversations where people say, well, the problem with us is, and I have to say, there is no problem with you. There's a superpower which wants to play God, that pulls you out of a Goa, which wants to punish you for actually daring to stand up to a terrorist organization. There's a neo-colonialist system that says that every African who wants to go over for a bloody vacation or a business trip is treated like a prisoner, like a convict, like a criminal. Just because they want to go on a trip to Thailand, or maybe they want to go see France. No, you might be a refugee. We can't let you in. I just spoke to a young man who wanted to visit my country. He got turned down for a travel visa, twice. All he wanted to do was visit. Why? Why should he be treated differently than me? I can go all over the world. Nobody thinks twice about letting me into Bhutan or Thailand or Congo or something. Why do I have freedom of movement than you or him? And we got to attack that. Somebody asked me, should Ethiopia have a permanent seat at the UN Security Council? Yes. Yes. Because why is it that we treat Russia and China, sometimes correctly, as international pariahs for being oligarchies and states that wage war on their own peoples, but they have permanent seats on the UN? Why doesn't Africa have one? Why doesn't Ethiopia have one? When we start to go after these questions and issues, when all of Africa gets behind and says, enough of this crap, you treat us equally. And the same way that I've said several times, Ethiopia was once looked to as the conscience of Africa, as a leader of the African continent. It's time for that to happen again, where you guys lead and say, this way we go. This is the new Pan-African movement. This is what we want. Come on. When that day comes, and I'm hoping somebody kicks it off now, soon, like tomorrow, please. So there.
Well, I mean, the movement has already kind of started. So are you saying?
I'm saying it's got to build even bigger. I want to see bloody demonstrations across this continent. I want to hear a noise which shakes the bloody columns in Washington, D.C., and the tower in Parliament in London that says, enough. You don't get to keep us stuck in a continent. No, we're not going to grow overexpensive flowers for you for sale when we could grow crops for our own people at home. No, you don't get to tell us who we can elect of our own government and tell us when to postpone our election, which, remember, they did. They said, oh, you shouldn't have an election right now. Really? You're supposed to be the guardians of democracy, but you're telling Ethiopia that it shouldn't hold an election, for which you got, if I understand correctly, an 80% turnout, which beats the hell out of theirs and my country as well. When, yes, there's a movement that started, but it's really got to increase in numbers, momentum, urgency. Just every single day get on the headlines and say, our time now, our agenda now. Push until, because nobody hands you freedom. You have to take it. You have to take it. And nobody gives up power willingly.